Hey folks, welcome to yet another episode of Breaking into Product Management. This time we have with us Gauransh Sanjay. We know him from way back in the day because he's been part of the product folks as well, but is currently a product manager, an associate product manager with Unacademy. He was earlier with Questt and with Noise. Very, very interesting journey. I know the backstory to this, so I can assure you it's going to be super interesting. The next 30 minutes are going to be very, very, very power packed. So stay tuned, but we'll quickly get this started. Gauransh, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Swas, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks so much for joining in. Gauransh, I'll keep it direct for you. I think a bunch of very, very sharp questions. To kick things off, I think you've transitioned from a very early stage edtech startup to a very, very late stage, right? If I say, I think this is India's second largest edtech unicorn, right? Direct question, how easy was this transition, right? If someone were to make a transition into product management, working at some of the best startups in India, how is this journey for you?
I think, thank you so much for that question. I think definitely not the easiest. Definitely did not happen overnight. It took a lot of time. One thing is that when you come from, so I come from a civil engineering background. So I was not in a place where, I could say, I know tech, I know how backend works, I know how front end works, and I just nail it with a feature. So I did not come from that space. So to crack to my first company, which was Series A funded edtech startup, I had to go through a lot of information, a lot of learning before I could get there. So one suggestion, I'd probably start off with something that Lenny pointed out in his conversation, in his session with Insurgio the other day, where he was talking about how when someone asked him a question about breaking into product management, and he said, don't aim for the biggest of the biggest companies on your day one. First, break into product management, get that title, get some work in, build that experience, and then go ahead and then aim at companies with those big names. If I had to add something to it, I'd say crack a small company or crack a company where you think that you can learn and build a portfolio simultaneously, because you should have proof of work. You should be able to show what you've done, what you've learned so far. And that should have names of big companies, of whose sessions you've looked at, whose sessions you've looked at, whose product problems you've tried solving. I think one good way, something that I've seen a lot of people do, is do product teardowns. I think that is the biggest way to learn. I also feel like I've been an integral part of, I think, a couple of initiatives at TPF. And I kind of feel bad that I was never a part of the teardown, because they're just so mind-blowing. And the kind of products that they've had, if I had to talk about Simple, Dunzo, they're big products. And, when you talk about them, when you do a teardown over there, you automatically get to learn a lot. More than doing it, even if you're watching a video. I remember watching the 1.5 hour long teardown for Dunzo, which was probably the first teardown that we had.
Yeah.
So I thought that I'll, skip here and there, watch 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then just move on. But I started it off, and as soon as people started presenting their decks, I stayed till the end. And with every deck, I was learning something new. And one of the people that I later on started working with also in TPF, I don't know if she wanted me to mention this or not, Sushmita gave an amazing presentation in her Dunzo pitch. And I found out that she was not even a PM at that point. And I was mind blown with the kind of skill we all bring to the table.
100%. I completely agree with you. Although it's not too late, Gauransh, you can always join the teardown team. Yeah, but I 100% agree with you. Right? I've seen that initiative go from scratch to where it is today. And very, very young folks who also come in. Like you mentioned, even folks who aren't into, there are lots of product managers who attempt it. But people who aren't into product management come present such lovely decks, such lovely insights. It's mind-blowing sometimes, right? So completely agree. Digging deeper into that, I think, and especially since you mentioned yesterday's Lenny's talk, he mentioned something very interesting, right? To break into product, you already need to be in product, right? And what he meant by that is, hey, how do you break this chicken and egg problem, right? These days, even for APM position, there's so much competition, right? And really, really talented folks, not as many opportunities there yet, right? So at that point of time, if you were to share some advice on how to break this chicken and egg problem, would you have any pointers that we could pick off?
Yeah, I think so. I would probably want to start talking about the one fear that all of us have, which is the fear of tech. We're like, we don't know enough tech, we won't be able to do product management. So when I was trying to break into product, resources were scattered. But now there's this one book called Tech Simplified by Deepak Singh, where he's put everything that you would essentially need to be a good need to know for in tech as a PM. It's all covered there. Lucky or lucky for me that he's also a senior director in my company right now. But even before that, I had already read his book and I knew the kind of wisdom that it had to impart. So I think that's one tech problem that you should definitely solve.
100%.
Yeah, moving on from there, I think second thing that sort of helped me was building my portfolio and working on my portfolio from day one. It was an advice that I picked up from this website called learnpmwith.me, where there was a video that was essentially talking to us about portfolio, importance of portfolio, how you should go about building a portfolio. And over there, I was like, and there I learned this one point ki bhai, pick products that everyone uses and then break them down. So I was like, you know what? Let's look at those products. Let's build case studies around them. And I picked up products like WhatsApp. So to a third person, WhatsApp is a perfect product. It has no problem to solve for. And that is where I sat down and I was like, yeah, kuch to hoga. Let's sit down, figure it out. I took a week just building my problem statement, because there was so much to look at and so many edge cases that were already covered. So I think first thing that I did was I looked at apps that people were commonly using, and I tried finding, but there were problems that we glaringly look at but ignore, and tried solving for those. So I picked up WhatsApp, I picked up Airtel app, because my entire family is an avid Airtel user. And so Airtel app is something that has always bothered us. So I was like, you know what, let me solve this. So these were the two things I don't remember more, but I did a lot more actually. But these were two case studies that I had built. And this is second. Third thing that I would essentially want to talk to you about is hustle. Nothing on this world. In this world, if something has been served to you in a silver platter, it comes with those thin lines of text with terms and conditions and whatnot. I think before I cracked my first PM internship, like a proper PM internship, which was at Noise, I had applied to 45 companies. If I had to pull out that Excel, I'll find that Excel somewhere where there are so many no's or so many not selected. And there is one yes at Noise that I broke into. And at Noise also, no, it's hard for people to believe, but I got that internship through Internshala. And around 250 people had applied, and they had only one opening for that role, and I got that one opening. But then it did not come on day one. It was after for good 40 rejections that I got into. I cracked that one internship. So 3 things to probably cover. First is don't be scared of tech. There are amazing resources out there. One resource that I shamelessly call out, and I also gift this book to people now, is Tech Simplified.
Yeah.
Second thing is portfolio and what you put in your portfolio. So I think you should definitely looking at common products and then working on them. An easy way to get there is, I think, product teardowns. Just start watching teardowns, see what people have done. If you can come up, with a resource like that. And third thing would be more around, and third thing would be on hustle.
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head, honestly. Like if I were to summarize, and these were probably the same 3 points that I might mention. In fact, this morning I sent a link of Deepak's book to someone and they've purchased it, right? So I think that was some resource I was missing. And there are other books that I've also seen, but I think Deepak's done a fantastic job, and completely agree with, in fact, this time Insurjo is where we are moving away from like a quantitative based scoring into a portfolio building, right? So they're going to be working on case studies and assignments every week, as well as participate in the monthly data. So that resource of 3, 4, 5, how many ever they attempt, becomes a great portfolio. So we're probably, helping them build that so that they can go apply exactly what you mentioned. And last one is also like a nail on the head, right? I think everyone talks about, okay, hey, how I broke into Google and Facebook and Amazon. That is perfect. But many of these also have rejections attached to it, right? Exactly like how you mentioned, like it's a process. Just be okay, right? And you, in the end of the day, you need just 1 or 2 or 3 of them to say yes, so you can, keep those offers. And I think just breaking in becomes a little harder. Once you get in, then you understand the law of the land. You understand that, okay, once I get this on my resume, then the next step becomes slightly easier. So I think you've hit the nail on the head with this, right? I'll probably summarize and pick this video snippet and share it with a bunch of folks, right?
I think just to add to it, like you said, now once you break in, so after I joined Noise, in less than 3 months, I had a full-time offer as well, which I joined. And I think Akhil also reached out to me. Like Akhil was my co-founder in my previous company. He also reached out to me because he saw that hustle in me and how I've cracked Noise and how I was doing at Noise. So just to talk about how, once you crack in, people start believing that faith and trust in you for sure.
Absolutely. I think just practice and hustle, like that bit goes hand in hand, right? One is make sure you have a great interview, getting your foot in the door, right? You can like pick past tear down cases also. You don't even have to wait. Just build 3, 4 of those, build that portfolio, get a foot in the door, break in. And then I think product management skill set then starts after that, right? In the beginning, it is your product management interview skill set that you need to perfect. I think, thanks for sharing that, Gauransh. I think let's go a little deeper now that you are working with Unacademy. If someone was looking to break in specifically, and let's say someone's already in an APM somewhere else, right? Very similar journey to the one you have. Or if someone's early in their career, looking into break into an APM role, but looking specifically at Unacademy, are there some tips or tricks that you'd like to share with them that might help them in their interview process? You could share more on, hey, how does the interview process look like? What are the kind of rounds to expect? What is something that Unacademy looks in early stage product managers, and some resources that helped you?
Yeah, I think what I'll do is probably I'll start with how my interview process looked like. And then over there, we can, detail out things and how I had learned what I had learned for those rounds. But before I start off, I want to probably call it out that this is how my process looked like. My hiring was fast-tracked because there was an immediate requirement that they had to fill in. So the process that was followed for me might be different for other people.
Sure. How different do you think that might be?
So I've spoken to a couple of folks, and sometimes they've given people assignments, like take-home assignments that they had to do and come back. And sometimes sometimes the kind of questions that were asked were different. For me, like I'll talk about it in the rounds. For me, the questions were different, but for other people, the questions were different. But I think more or less the structure probably remains the same. But yeah, there was no assignment for me, which seemed like a pretty different this approach when it came to me. So quickly talking to you about the rounds, right? So I had 3 rounds in my interview. First round was essentially was a product sense / design question. Where a senior PM came down, he sat with me. It was not exactly whiteboarding, but he was asking, but I was, he gave me a problem statement and I was working on the problem statement layer by layer. And I was talking to him about, how this could be done and how they could move on. I think to add a small snippet here and there, they probably, when Unacademy is shortlisting people, they have a yes, they have a soft yes. So when there's a solid yes, and it's communicated to the next person who's also interviewing. So all these points get added. So but it's not that they will immediately reject you. You will always go on to your next round. But there would either be a no, soft yes, or a yes. So in my case, I was a soft yes, because the minute I walked into my house after office for my interview, there was no electricity. And I just ran open and I was like, what to do? And immediate solving was going to a cafe nearby where there was a lot of noise around me. So I was a little fumbled, but it's not a tough round to do if you're doing a little practice with decent design questions, product design questions, product sense questions. You will be able to tackle the case. If I
Any
have
particular resource that you like to share for people preparing for product design interviews?
Yeah. So I think I'll probably talk about two resources. First one is the theoretical resource, right? Where do you build that theoretical knowledge? So PM School has a series in like 7-8 videos where they've spoken about the types of product management interviews that you get to see. And they have they talk to you in product design, they talk to you about the circles method, and then they have something for different interview type of questions. They have a process for guesstimates also. And the second resource that I would want to talk about is something that I had worked on at TPF, which is the PM interview series. So nothing available on YouTube really talks about the Indian context when it comes to interviews, apart from the PM series that TPF has on the channel. They're good 12, 13 questions that cover everything from guesstimate to product design to RCH to everything. So whoever is trying to break into, whoever is trying to solve these problems, these are two things that I'll definitely tell them to do. First thing would be to, go through that playlist, make proper notes, get that handle on you that, you have that control of your basics, right? And then you move on to watching those videos that we have. And we don't have 1, 2, we have like at least good 20, 30 interviews. So by the time you're done watching all of them, you will have a very solid base ready. कैसे ठीक है? लोग इन frameworks को ऐसे use कर रहे हैं. Sorry for switching to Hindi, but yeah, so that will give you a clear understanding. You know what? This is how people are solving this. This is how people are, probably implementing circles method. That is something people do in product design interviews. Are using it over here, and that is something that I could also look at. So that would definitely be, that would be more around the first round of interview. My second round was with my hiring manager. So back, it was more around, my second interview was now about what have I done so far, and the kind of problems that I have worked on in the past, how deeper was I digging into the problems, how much ownership I have taken in my previous role. I think post my hiring, two things that I've realized that my manager was trying to do with my interview. Again, I don't know if I'm being very accurate or not, because I never asked him this question. But two things that I have understood is that one thing that he was looking at was intent. And second thing that he was looking at teachability, because he knows that I'm not coming in, with 5-10 years of experience. I know how the industry works. He knew that I would ask him a lot of questions, and I would, but at the same time, I would put in that time of asking him the right questions, of ensuring that, that I'm going back to him for feedback. I'm implementing the feedback that has been given to me. So these are the two things that he was looking at. One was intent, and second one was teachability. I think, again, when the interview was happening, I did not realize that this is what I was being interviewed on. But later on, when I started working, I realized that is what he was trying to judge. Again, you cannot judge anyone with one interview, but my manager sort of managed doing that with those two nails in the coffin, right? Third thing, which I think also, then I had a third interview. This third interview was more around seeing if I was a culture fit or not. It was also with the senior director of PM. To be fair with you, it was with Deepak, who wrote the Tech Simplified book. That also was a coffin. That was also the final nail to the coffin that I wanted to join Unacademy. So in that interview was more about him ensuring that I was not joining Unacademy simply because it was a big name and hype. He was trying to see if I actually loved edtech and if I actually loved the space that I was getting into or not.
Got it.
And all the questions were around this. And I remember when my interview was getting over, we both were so passionately talking about this one problem statement that people in edtech are always trying to solve. So not one, there are many, but there was one thing that we both sort of agreed on, that this is something that we all are looking to solve and what can be done about it. And a lot of my conversation revolved around there in that scenario. So I think that is probably about it. If I had to talk about my 3 rounds of interview, if I had to give someone any resources, so the 2 resources that I mentioned to prepare for questions. Third thing would be that don't lie in your interview. Because if you're saying that if you've done this XYZ thing, always know that a PM is going to ask you about the why behind it. And because he's a PM and because product management is majorly a framework being put in different scenarios. No, it's not the same framework, but same set of thought process, right? He understands the problem as well. And he will probably ask you the right questions and trying to understand understand how you went about solving it. So this is something that we should be very, very careful about. Second thing is, please do please work on some problem statements that you are very passionate about. Be it a side hustle, be it a major project in your company. There's nothing wrong with being passionate about something that you're doing in your current organization as well. I'm very passionate about a lot of things I did when I was in Questt. So do that, and with that backing, it becomes a lot easier for you to, for you to do well in these interview rounds that you're gonna face. So I think that's about it. But to add to the last point, Unacademy loves people who love EdTech. Okay. So please come with that love. The questions could be around that as well. Deepak did ask me a lot of questions around it.
Gauransh, how important is at least like at the APM level, right? Many of them might not come directly with some background. In your case, maybe Questt slightly tangentially, yes. Maybe not in the same space that Unacademy does. But how important is it, for example, for you to have, I wouldn't say domain expertise, but maybe a passion for the domain in this case while working in products?
So I don't know how to answer that question because
for most people it's the first role, right? It's very difficult.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Just to probably answer that question. Sure. All the companies that I applied to or I have ever applied to were fields that I was very passionate about. Yeah. I was very passionate about gaming. Applied to companies over there. I was very passionate about EdTech, and I'm very passionate about fintech, and to some level insurance tech. Yeah. And I have my own personal reasons why I was passionate about these 4 fields. So if someone's applying to Unacademy, to me it would be a given that that you are passionate about EdTech and you like the way Unacademy is solving the problem. Exactly. So, and you can't. And when someone says passion is not only about towards one thing. Definitely, that's the ideal scenario. But nobody is a one man. Nobody is that way.
Yeah, maybe it just helps you work at your job also a little better. If you're not passionate about it, if you don't like that space at all, I don't think you can do justice to the product you're building, right? I think that's where both of us are probably converging to. Right? Yeah. I agree with that. Gauransh, one more thing I've noticed, I think you're inherently very, very curious, right? I've worked with you in volunteering. I think that is one skill that I think also I think puts you at least, a step forward. It is, you might put it in the bucket of hustle, you might put it in different buckets, but I've seen you to be inherently curious. And I think that is one skill, if I was on the hiring side, right? If there were 2 candidates with the same thing, I think I would still, at least for the APM side, I think I'd still push a candidate with that inherent curiosity, because I think you will go one step forward to just research the problem space a lot better, right? Before jumping into solutions. So I think, I just wanted to mention that since we were chatting formally here as well.
You're absolutely right. I think both intent and teachability come from curiosity. And if you're not curious, you're not growing. I think I'm very curious about whatever I start doing. So even if I pick up a small skill that I want to master, I watch hundreds of YouTube videos about it.
That.
For no reason whatsoever, I know how to do well with that.
That's good. That's good. That is good, dude. That is good. Yeah. Gauransh, one more question before we move on from this topic. Especially at Unacademy, you mentioned, okay, hey, these were the different rounds, these were resources. Are there any particular problem statements that you've seen some common? Maybe it's things that you were asked, maybe it's things that you've seen come across. Just want to let our audience know the kind of things that they should be preparing for. It's okay even if you don't remember the exact question. Maybe if you could point them to some of our past guests have mentioned, I think, the case study preparation, right? Especially for the guesstimate round. Stuff like that has helped them. So particular resources on that. Then I think we have some very, very common product management questions that come up. That is what people have shared. Anything that you remember from your interviews or something that is?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. To probably put the first part here. There's this question that everyone asks. That is the tell me about yourself question. Yeah. You should always have 2 answers ready for it. One is a long answer and one is a short answer. And in your first 30 seconds, you've got to understand what does your interviewer want to listen to. Sometimes the interviewer comes ready, right, with his questions that he's going to ask you. In that case, he needs a small answer. If he's not, but if he's come with wanting to look for certain skills in you, then he's gonna deep dive into your into the tell me about yourself question. So I think first thing would definitely be that to work on both the kind of questions and be ready over there. Second thing, from what I understand, product design and product sense questions is something that that are quite popular over here. I won't say that it's a set in stone rule, but I've seen that those questions come often. The question that actually I was asked for, I actually remember the question. It was around Uber wanting to start a bus service kind of model. So basically, they'll rent a tempo traveler which has 10-12 seats, and now they have this. This is what they've told us, that they want to start this. Now my job was to figure out how it should be built, what kind of placements that they should have. Should have a door-to-door pickup, not have a door-to-door pickup. How should the app look like? What kind of model should it have? Then what my go-to-market should be. So this was one question that I was asked. And I think these kind of questions is something that you can definitely expect.
So not specifically to anything at Unacademy, right? I think that first point that you mentioned is great. That this is one question you get across all interviews, I feel, right? Because it's just a icebreaker question. Many people just use that to break ice. So if you have an interesting answer prepared for it, I think that really makes that first impression, right? If you go in with a very standard, resume, they probably have come across your resume. Like you mentioned, that first 30 seconds can be a snippet, but how can you make that a little more interesting? So go prep with that. And second one that you mentioned, I think is interesting because I think lots of people are shuffling around questions as well. So is there any particular resource that has helped you there, especially for such questions? What bucket would this come under? Would this come under RCA? Would this come under problem design? I think this would come under product design, no?
It would come under product sense, product design.
Product sense, product design, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah. In your case, you mentioned not the conventional route of interview, but have you seen questions around guesstimates come up, around case studies that you mentioned, anything of those sorts, RCA problems that are usually asked? And
I don't think I have, from all the people that I have spoken to, these kind of questions have not come up.
Got it.
Again, I don't think I can give you like a definite answer. Yes, those
for sure.
I can only talk about what happened with me and what I have come across with my conversations with other people. Fair
enough. But you mentioned yours was 3 rounds. In other cases, maybe an additional round, right? So maybe 3-4 rounds is usual at Unacademy. That's fairly.
And at an APM level, there might be an assignment as well.
Okay, that's a good filtration process. I think early on that assignment would come through.
Yeah. I think at an entry level role, a lot of people apply, and it becomes a good filtering level to show intent only.
Fair enough.
If you're doing the assignment, you're showing intent towards the role too.
Agree. I think lots of people drop off there. No, I've heard like that's a good way. That's exactly why I think that's a good filtration process. Right? Yeah. Gauransh, before we move into the fun segment, one question that I have for you is, you've been a volunteer with TPF for quite some time. What really got you interested to volunteer for TPF, and has this played a part in the way you think about products today or your product career in general?
I think that's a good question. So, to probably add to it, I think I'm a consumer first, volunteer second. To me, the TPF content that's available on YouTube is definitely something that I listen to, like podcasts nowadays. So not nowadays, I've been doing that for a good time now. To probably share a small anecdote over there. One time I was facing this one problem statement that had something to do with customer support, and how you could leverage that to get product insights, all of that. And I had racked my day over that problem statement the whole day. And in the evening, I come home and I'm doing something, and I simultaneously start listening to a video by a senior PM from Grab, which was about first principle thinking. Because that was also a keyword that I had stumbled upon that day, first principle thinking. So I started watching that video, and 15 minutes into the video, that guy starts talking about customer support and how he has leveraged customer support to build a good product pipeline for Grab. Mm-hmm. And I was just mind blown with how that happened. And it's one of many incidents that have happened with me over there. And apart from that, I think, like Suhas said, I think I also sort of agree that I'm a little curious. And also sometimes when I see a problem, it bugs me a lot. I think TPF has given me a platform to solve those problems for myself when it comes to career. Back in November, when I joined TPF in 2020, right before that was when I had given all my interviews and had finally landed a product role. And the problem that I had faced was the same, right? That there were no Indian context YouTube interviews on the platform. And when I joined TPF, I was like, you know what? I want to do this. Yeah. And there was already a couple of people who also had the same idea. and there was nobody telling you, yeah, ye nahi ho sakta. Yeah, this might be tough. This might be that.
Yeah.
We just jumped right into it, right? We were like, you know what? Let us all do it with all the passion and energy that we have. And I did a good. I was involved in a good 7, 8, 9 videos.
Yeah.
I think first 3 were already done, and then I did 6, 7 more after that. And sitting in those interviews was a learning experience for me.
Exactly.
If I have to talk to you about my second such incident with TPF, it would be probably around when I was just going through my job switch. I did not know how salaries worked. Sadly, Glassdoor is outdated. I don't want to say this. Don't copyright me on this. But Glassdoor data is incorrect. It's just incorrect. Whatever people say, it's incorrect, right? And no other platforms have built great products, but don't have enough data to give you good results.
True.
And that is when the whole PM salaries initiative is something that I wanted to work on. I went and I started talking to Suhas about it, and it turned out that he was having a similar conversation with someone else, and I connected with that other person, and then I won't say that I with 3-4 other people, all 3-4 of us spearheaded that whole initiative, and we came out with a report which is based on real data. We are not kidding around with anyone. We collected some data and we published that data directly to give people real insights and information into how this thing works.
Exactly.
And that's not possible without TPF.
Yeah.
There's one last point. If I don't mention, I think it's useless, but I found great mentors because of TPF. Dinesh Portnodu, he's the VP of product at IND Money. My first interaction with him was while he was interviewing for the mock interview series.
Oh, nice.
And he's till date my mentor. I have a small problem. I dropped him a WhatsApp message crying.
Very nice.
There is one more. Similarly, there's one more senior PM from Adobe. His name is Abhishek Shukla.
Oh, yes.
He's launched an amazing cohort recently on how to do product management in SaaS as well. He also became a mentor of mine while the same series, and I'm still on like a message basis with them. I don't have to sugarcoat anything. I can directly text them and be like, "Sir, this is a problem I'm facing. How do I?" It's
a relationship, right? It's a relationship you've built.
Yeah. That is definitely there. So I think I have the whole TPF team, Suhas, Abhay, you and Abhay, everyone to thank for it. But yeah, that has definitely been there.
Oh, this is so awesome to hear. Honestly, I think, what I was thinking parallelly when Shreyas Doshi, for example, in his tweets and in his video which he recorded, that there he mentions high agency and ownership, right? Both things that you mentioned, I think just showcase that, right? And I think, we were also super glad that, you joined and spearheaded these two. I think both initiatives today are very, very well consumed, because I think lots of other people, you came in with the problem that you were facing. There were so many other people in that bucket. And that's the reason once it's live, there are thousands of people currently consuming the Breaking into PM. There are thousands of people who've already downloaded the PM salaries report, right? So, on that sense, I think two very interesting initiatives. Looking forward to what we do next. But I think this brings us to the end of the serious segment. I think we did discover a lot about Unacademy, a lot about some interview. Folks, if you have any other questions, specifically if you're applying here, we will attach Gauransh's LinkedIn profile in the description here. So do drop him a message. He is very, very helpful in general. That's something I can vouch for. You can also chat with him on his journey in general, and maybe other companies as well. I'm sure he'll be able to help you out. Gauransh, it's been a wonderful, wonderful chat today. I think it's been a good 1 hour of this. But thanks so much for joining us. I think I'm sure you'll get lots of DMs after this asking you for lots of advice to break into Unacademy. But thanks so much for joining us today. This was a fantastic chat.
I think if I want to just add like one tiny bit to just tell people about the impact TPF has had, you should go and check Brijesh Bharadwaj's Twitter and see one place where he's called out on Shayan to join him as a PM at FamPay. Definitely shows the impact we created.
Yeah. In fact, Shayan breaking into FamPay was one of the most fun stories, right? Today, when volunteers asking, I think that's one story that I share. In fact, see, he met via Insojo itself, right? He was volunteering on office hours, invited Brijesh for office hours. Shayan was handling that. Right? They connected there. Then 3 months later, when Shayan was like looking for something else, Brijesh like, dude, why don't you come join me itself? And that conversation kicked off. So I think a lot of organic conversations. I think when people talk about networking, right? this is probably the closest that comes to, rather than sending 100 DMs, make 5 quality relationships that turn up into something. If you don't make it for the sake of, okay, hey, that I want to work, these all happen. It's about serendipity, right? Here, you're just increasing your surface area, and that's why you're making more opportunities for yourself. So yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Suhas, for having me. I think this was a great conversation. Went a little long for sure, but I had a great time.
No, this was fantastic. I think having you on the pod also was a refresher of sorts, right? You get to learn both sides of the story, but at the same time, I've seen that on a closer basis. So I know, some points that I wanted to go deeper on. So this was awesome. Thanks, Gauransh, once again.
Thanks, Suhas.